My name is Alexander Wong Kmiec. My tag is White and Wong. Historically, when I was younger, it was just Alex with a K. But when I started playing Tekken, I switched to White and Wong. I'm originally from Boston. My family was both in Dorchester, near Neponset Circle, and Castle Court in the Back Bay, back when it was like the pre-gentrification Back Bay. When it was just a bunch of Chinese immigrants. I mostly grew up in Randolph and Medford, and we moved out to the Worcester area when I was in high school. I lived in the Boston area and the Worcester area, and then places in between, Framingham for a bit, and but now I'm back, obviously, in the Boston area and Medford. It was myself and my parents and my brother Adam, who is 2 years older than me. My father is Polish and Romani. His family came here from Germany. That's where they ended up after the war. And my mother is Southern Chinese, specifically Taishanese. And they fled Taishan during the Japanese invasion when Hirohito invaded. They fled to Hong Kong, and her and her family came here from Hong Kong. Thinking about my childhood, I was a dumb kid. And I was very hyperactive. So I didn't actively think about it in the moment, especially growing up in communities where they were already very racially diverse. I never really actively reflected on my mixed background or my Asian or Polish and Romani background. It was just kind of like, this is just how life is. You have a drawer full of chopsticks, parts of the house smell like mothballs. We eat rice with every meal, preserved cabbage. We went to Chinatown specifically to eat at Jade Garden and China Pearl every other week with the rest of our extended family. Looking back on it, I feel very fortunate that I had that part of my life intact and a closeness with my extended family, specifically with my cousins and aunts and uncles and my grandparents. And to be surrounded by not just the culture of these places, but also the language of our family. To be using Polish and Cantonese and Toisan as freely and often as we did, that's not something a lot of people get. So I do feel very lucky that I grew up in that environment. My parents punished me, I think, for missing a homework assignment or something. So they took away my video games, and I was like, that's fair. And I was like, okay, what do I do? And I heard specifically Iron Maiden, their 1983 album, Peace of Mind. And I was captivated by it. I was like, yo, music can be like this? I think I was 11 at the time, 11 or 12. And I was just so infatuated with what they were doing. I was like, I want to do that. And my brother had practiced guitar some years before, so there was a practice guitar in his closet that no one had touched for years. So I just broke it out, and I hopped on the internet, and I did some searches for how to play guitar, and I found some guitar tabs, and one of the first songs I ended up learning was Enter Sandman by Metallica, and of course I ended up learning The Trooper by Iron Maiden later that year, and that completely changed my life. Not only has it resulted in a career and a lifelong passion, it's changed my brain. I don't think about things the same way that I used to pre-music, if I can even meaningfully recall how my thoughts worked back then. But I hear music and everything. When I hear music, I'm constantly analyzing it. I can't just sit and just idly listen to music. I suppose that's both a blessing and a curse, but it's always cool that I can listen to something and just start to pick apart and analyze and dissect what they're doing and understand it and appreciate it on a level that I know I would not have been able to do had I not learned how to play and write music. It's literally changed the way I see the world. Playing in high school bands, I was having a lot of fun just playing local shows and stuff. And at that point in my life, my passion for learning had gone out the window. When we moved from the Boston area toward out west, that completely destroyed me. There was very few people I got along with. I didn't really have any friends in school. Not being in the city was like really, really painful. So I just kind of like didn't care about academics, and music was my only focus. And I was really, it was like the one thing that I wanted to do. So I continued to play in high school bands up until graduation, and was like, all right, I want to give this a shot. I'm not going to go to college right now. I want to see if I can make this work. Just the idea of being able to do something that I love for a living, or at least try, was enticing. So I kept playing more shows with the band that I was in, and came in contact with another band called Therefore I Am, that I thought was incredibly, incredibly talented, and I thought the guys in it were really cool. I knew a few of them from a band that they had been in previously, and that summer they were looking for a new guitarist, so I tried out because I knew they were serious about making this a career. They were serious about touring and putting out albums. This wasn't just a hobby. This was something that they wanted to make their life as well. So I got lucky. I found the people that I wanted to be with at the age of 17, and their aims were my aims. They wanted to do what I wanted to do, and we hit it off. We just gelled incredibly well musically. So they took me on, and the rest is history, I guess. That's how my music career. My mom was very, very heartbroken when she found out that I was not going to college and was going to pursue music. My father tried to be supportive. He came out to a lot of shows. He took pictures and stuff because he was also a photographer. But the whole they spent a lot of energy trying to talk me out of it. It was a hard time for me and my parents, like interpersonally. My brother, he was away at college, and we'd never been close. Not that we don't hate each other. We don't have anything in common. So he didn't really have an opinion on it. He was just like, oh, Aleks is doing music, whatever, it's fine. That was a very difficult time for my relationship with my parents. It was not smooth.
What about now? Like, has it gotten any better?
It has, and a huge part of that, I think, is the relative success I've had producing music for video games. I think my parents understand now that, this is tangible, and he's talented. He can do things, and people will pay him to do these things, and people want to hear him do these things. I think they're understanding that there is true value in what I do, and that it makes me happy. And my parents tell me all the time now, they're like, as long as you're happy, you should do what you want to do. They've even been encouraging me to go to Japan because they know that's something I really want for myself. So yeah, at this point in our relationship, they're cool with it. I worked on some community stuff for Quake. I worked on episodes 1 and 2 for Dwell. I wrote the soundtrack for Alkaline, and there is an unreleased soundtrack for a project called Tremor that was announced some years back. That's still in development. I'm hoping it comes out this year, but we'll see. I've been sitting on that soundtrack for 2.5 years now, and no one's heard it. The only people who've heard it are me and the rest of the dev team. There are no less than 2 more soundtracks that I'm currently working on for games that are unannounced. There is a potential 3rd. There's a potential 4th too. So I am sitting on a lot of work that I unfortunately can't talk about, but I'm excited for all of it. I'm working with some people that I've known for years and really love and respect. I think these games are going to be really, really cool. I'm actually really, really excited for them. So yeah, while my body of work right now is really small, there's a lot of stuff over the next 2-3 years that I hope people get to hear. About 9 years ago, I put a glass through my hand. And this was also coming off a particularly heartbreaking breakup that I had. So I was dealing with ending a relationship, and I was opening the restaurant one day, and I fell with a glass in my hand, and the glass stem went through my hand. It severed my common digital and barrier nerves. It just missed my tendons, so I have a big scar in my hand now. It's the shape of a 7. It really messed me up, and I knew I knew right then and there it was bad because I didn't feel pain. My hand immediately went numb, like cold, like it felt like stone. That's when I knew it was bad. Obviously, I bled a lot. I almost passed out from the bleeding. It was crazy. Obviously, they patched me up at the hospital. A follow-up exam revealed that my nerves were severed. So they sent me into emergency surgery. They were like, we have 2 weeks to repair this or else you lose your nerves. So they ended up bringing me in like within the week. I have my hand, thankfully. It works for the most part. Most of the feeling is back. Most of most of my motor skills are back and dexterity is pretty much there. But that was tough because I was afraid that I would never play an instrument again. And my hand was wrapped in like this giant gauntlet. It was like a giant metal splint that went across my whole hand, and then like it was so thick I couldn't put like a long sleeve shirt on. It wouldn't fit through the sleeve. It was crazy. So I could only wear t-shirts with like giant sleeves, and I wore that for months. I basically didn't have my dominant hand for months, and so I couldn't work. So I was on short-term disability, just sitting around my house, not doing anything because I couldn't. Like, I couldn't play video games, couldn't play music, and all I could think about was like, am I ever going to get this thing back? That was probably the hardest thing in my life, just dealing with that. Landing the job for Fan and Fury felt really, really good. Like, it was very validating that people would like believe in me enough to say, hey, we want you to write the soundtrack to a video game by a very well-known and acclaimed studio. That was probably the biggest. In addition to that, when I finally got my hand back and realized I could start playing again, I went to my bandmate at the time and I said, we're going to do a new album and it's going to be a full length. I've never done a full length before. And we wrote and produced that and engineered it ourselves. We did everything from a studio that we built from the ground up. So that was incredible. That was the fact that I was able to come back and play music again, and then at the time put together my greatest musical achievement following such a terrible injury was probably my biggest achievement. My father and mother had an AV business, an audiovisual business, that my father ran with his brother, actually. So we had a computer in the house because my dad needed a computer for work. I was about like 3 years old, so it was like 89, 90. And it was, the first game I ever played was probably Commander Keen. And shortly after that, my father got himself Wolfenstein 3D, he got the shareware version, and he was really into that. That game scared the shit out of me as a kid. After that, things like King's Quest and Goblins, like a lot of point and click, like graphical adventures. Doom was obviously a huge formative game for me in '93. And then of course Quake. Quake is probably my favorite first-person shooter of all time. I mean, not only do I make music for Quake, I make maps for Quake. I know people who work at id. I am an active member in the Quake community. So that game was incredibly important for me. Basically just being around, being very lucky enough to have a computer at home because my dad needed it for work, definitely shaped the way I enjoy media now. Like, games were a part of me from a very, very, very early age. I probably messed around a little bit with specifically Mortal Kombat at the arcade when I lived in Randolph. It's actually the same arcade that Bugatti used to go to. Actually, no, it wasn't that game. That was an early one. The first fighting game that I remember seeing, like actively remember seeing and playing and touching, was X-Men versus Street Fighter, which was the precursor to the Marvel versus Capcom series. It was specifically like the Alpha Street Fighter sprites and X-Men. I think Red 13 was in that game, or Omega 13. I think his name is Omega 13. He's like an X-Men villain that I don't even know if he showed up in any of the other Marvel vs. Capcom. But that was the first fighting game I distinctly remember playing. Obviously back then as a kid, I didn't take fighting games seriously. It was just something you just mash buttons on. Obviously, and Jack's father, Coinslot's father, had a PlayStation. He had Tekken 3 at his place, Tekken 2 or Tekken 3. So I messed around with that when I was at their place too. I didn't start taking fighting games seriously till 2009 with Street Fighter 4. That obviously was a huge, huge success. It was a phenomenon. It revitalized the entire scene. That's when I started playing and started buying arcade sticks. I played that mostly. Obviously played some Third Strike 2, and I messed around a little bit with the Persona games. I have a Persona stick that I made. A little bit of BlazBlue, a little bit of Guilty Gear, a little bit of Soul Calibur, but it was mainly Street Fighter up until Street Fighter 5. So yeah, that is like how I got into fighting games, or rather started taking them seriously and engaging with them more. As far as the arcade community, at that point I was not into fighting games. I was around when locals started flourishing, but at that point we were making the transition to the Xbox 360 and people having their own controllers. So I guess I was on the edge of what would have been considered arcade exclusive. But the sentiment and the attitudes and the energy in the room was still very much similar to the arcade scene, I would say. Very, not that it isn't competitive now, but very like, even if you were playing your homie, you didn't like each other when you were running a set. Like people were bloodless. There was definitely less of a let's get good together attitude. Not that that didn't exist subconsciously in people's heads, because everyone had training partners, but it was more, I want to beat you, and I want to beat you badly. I don't want this to be close. I want to ruin your day. I want you to like hate this set and not be happy. So there was definitely a more antagonistic and definitely to a degree a more toxic atmosphere, I would say. So going back to Street Fighter 5, I hated that game. I could not stand it. I played it for about 6 months and I was just like, this game's not for me. So I didn't have a game anymore. And I distinctly remember seeing Tekken at EVO, Tekken 7. It was, I can't remember what year it was, but it was the year that Nino got revealed for Tekken 7. So it was before the console release. Grand Finals was Nobi versus Ao. And I remember watching it. Obviously I knew about Tekken, but it was never a game that I gave any amount of time because I felt it would be too hard making the transition from 2D to 3D. And I had plenty of games to play at that time. And I was watching the Grand Finals and I was like, man, this game looks sick. This looks really, really fun. And obviously they were announcing Tekken 7 for consoles. So it was really, really good timing. I needed a game. There's a new game coming out. What better time to get into Tekken than on the ground floor with a new title? So that summer, Coinslot was actually graduating high school. I bought 2 copies of the game, one for myself, one for him, and I gave him one of my arcade sticks to borrow, and I said, we're going to learn this game together. And that's how both my and his Tekken journey began. Literally, I just thought it looked sick, and I wanted to play because I wasn't going to play anything else. It was either I play this or I don't have a game. They caught lightning in a bottle, I would say, with that game. And we had so much fun learning how to play it. I was already going, before that, during the life of SF4, I was going to the Game Underground locals, back when it was still in Framingham, near my college. And then obviously they moved to the mall at Natick. There was a few people there for Tekken always. Apparently Mason was there, but he and I had never like actively interacted. I was always playing either anime games or I was playing Street Fighter. And he would bring his own setup because no one was bringing Tekken, because no one else played. So I decided to go back to GU specifically for Tekken. And the first person I met was Mason. And he showed up a little after me. He just walked into the room and he started like talking to himself and like laughing at his own jokes. And I was like, who is this guy? So I just got to talking to him and I realized this guy's really cool. He's really funny. And I could not believe how passionate he was about the game. It's all he wanted to do. And I was like, man, I look back on that time. I look back on that first visit to GU for Tekken specifically. And had I not met Mason, I don't know that I would have kept playing, or at least kept going to locals. Like, he made it fun. And I was like, all right, I'll come back. We actually, I think despite us going to locals together all the time, I think we only ever ran into each other in bracket once. But when bracket was over, he and I would I brought my laptop back then. I'd still bring my laptop, but like at T7 I had my laptop. He and I would find a table, and we would run casuals for like 2 hours. And not only were they fun, they were so funny. Like, I would do this. You can ask Mason about this. I would try to see how many delayed hop kicks I could hit him with. And the amount of delayed hop kicks he ate was crazy. He would just like throw up his hands. He's like, I can't believe it. That stuff is so slow, but I hit him with it so many times. Yeah, the answer is Mason. I always will play this game with Mason. Actually, I think I might have met V that same day. And the next visit, I met this guy named Nick. I think he lives in Florida now. He was in Eliza, Maine. He was really good. I met Max Out, who was, of course, a Marvel player before that, and he was picking up Tekken. Who else did I meet? The scene was still very, very small, specifically at the Natick place. And eventually going to Boston later on that year, I met even more people, including Mason's at the time, his roommates, Live Fast, who is an amazing drag player. I would say Mason is the reason I kept going to locals. The first visit, I didn't enter the bracket. I just played casuals with people. And then next time I entered, obviously I went 0-2. I went 0-2 for a while before I started winning games. But yeah, no, I went there. At that point, how old was I? I was like 30, 31. I had never TO'd. Like, even back when I was in Street Fighter, I didn't care. I just wanted to play. Like everyone else, I was there to play. There were nights where we just kind of needed it. Our TO for the longest time, I'm not sure if you met him, Zoob. He's a great dude. Yeah. Amazing, amazing dude. He unfortunately lives out in Western Mass now, so that's why he's not TOing in Boston. But he was the guy. Funniest dude ever. Very, very kind. Great player. Great commentator. But there were a couple nights where he was not present. Because everyone's got a life to live. So one night I was just like, I guess I'll just do it. That night I actually realized that this was in the middle of season 2. We didn't have DLC on most of our setups. We had it on like 1 or 2. So I started talking to Lucky D about, getting DLC for, all our setups, just to make it easier for everyone to enjoy the game and run bracket. I just kind of fell into it. It was just like there was a vacuum in that spot in that moment. I was like, whatever, I'll just do it. And I realized that I found it, pretty rewarding and fun. And I like to be organized, and I like to, make sure things run efficiently. So whenever Bob wasn't there, his name is Bob. So whenever Zoob wasn't there, or Brittany wasn't there, I would just kind of take over. And yeah, it just, after a while, it just organically emerged that I was the guy you'd go to about, running Tekken. I have often thought about the distinct nature of the Boston Tekken scene. And I think it's very easy for people to begin a conversation about talent pool, whether it be Boston, New York, Connecticut, Atlanta, California. I mean, that is the universal metric that we measure our relative value. And I think while that is important, because this is a competitive game, it is one-on-one. For me, the camaraderie that comes with the Boston Tekken scene is what really sets it apart. I think there is a closeness between all of our players, just as friends, that is not something you'll get a lot elsewhere. It is a very special thing. Like, I had people over last week, all of whom were in the Tekken scene, and for the majority of the time we were over, most of us weren't even playing Tekken. We were just eating pizza and talking about just stuff, because we're friends. Like, we don't need, while it is great that we have met each other and bonded over the game, those connections run so deep that we can just enjoy each other's company. We don't need the game to facilitate that. We just want to be around each other because these people, they're my friends, They're not my friends because they play Tekken. They're just my friends because I value them as human beings, and I want to want to hear what they have to say. I want to spend time with them. I want to know who they are outside of the lens of Tekken. That is something that I think has been unique and special about the Boston scene. Not that that doesn't exist for people in other scenes. I'm sure it does to a degree. It's just when I consider how many people are part of my life because of Tekken, and the fact that I am so connected with them outside of the context of the game, I think that's really, really special. I got into making pizzas because I love pizza, and I wanted to have more of it that didn't require spending so much money. I realized my great love is just regular round, New York style pie. I was like, I should just learn how to make a regular pie. And man, the amount of dough balls I ruined just like learning how to stretch and knowing at what point in its proofing process that it was ready to be used, knowing what kind of surfaces I should be cooking it on, for how long, at what temperature, how much cheese I should be using, how much sauce I should be using, how to make sauce, how to shred cheese. I got into like incredibly minute details, just like always making something and thinking, man, that was good. Let's try making it better next time. And yeah, I don't know. It just became a great love of mine. It just, when you like learn a craft and it becomes like ingrained in your muscle memory, there's like a compulsion to keep doing it. And it's very rewarding. We've had the conversation about cooking in general. Not only is it a good skill to have, but there's something very special about making something and then reaping that reward immediately and being able to share it with people. So I just love pizza, man. And any opportunity to have more is a good thing. And that's really why I learned how to make it. I just wanted more of it, and now I make so much of it. I have the opportunity to share it with other people, and that's an extra blessing. I've thought about this a lot. And to be honest, as much as I thought about it, it's never like hit me. I've never had like an oh shit moment or like a big revelation about it, or like taking a step back and being like, wow, look how far we've come. I look at it and go, huh, cool. I don't know why. And not to cheapen our growth. I think that is an amazing thing, but I look at it and say, oh, hey, that's cool. And I don't know why. Perhaps it is just my mind not being able to comprehend the explosive growth that we've seen and like really appreciate it, because it has been so incremental and across such a long time that it feels natural and it feels right. Where I look at it and say, instead of like having a wow moment, I just go, yeah, that's exactly how it should be. Like this is where we were headed, and we're here. Justice. That's probably a cheap answer, but like whenever I think about it, that's like maybe my mind just won't let me comprehend it because my head will explode. But yeah, that's just how I've always viewed it, and I don't know why. I would like people to take more ownership of this scene, and I would like players to understand that this scene is not in service to them as a player and competitor. We are called the fighting game community, and I think the word community needs to carry more weight for people. And I think people need to understand that in order to be part of this in a way that is meaningful, it behooves them to put more work and love into it. And that's obviously not going to be the case for everyone. Some people just want to play. Some people are here to compete. They want to come in, they want to put in work in the bracket and then go. And it's like, you know what? I can't fault anyone for that. That this game is made for that specifically. But I think there is more good to be had from people participating in the well-being of the community as a whole, by doing things that go beyond just showing up and playing a bracket. I try to act in a way that I feel would result in the most good. Because that just creates a better world for myself and everyone else. And life is so hard and terrible. Like living is like suffering half the time, if not more. It's like, if you have it in you, You know, if it doesn't take much for you to make someone else's existence a little less painful, and by extension your own, you should do it. Because I think everyone is worthy of peace. And part of finding peace is having everyone be kind to each other. Like like no one is an island. Everyone exists in the context of society and everyone else around them. In order to make it work for yourself, it has to work for everyone together. First and foremost, I understand how difficult that first step is for a lot of people, especially if you have anxiety like me. That's a very, very difficult thing to do. And if you're even thinking about it, I would tell that person, you're already being very brave. And please understand that we were all there at some point, you know? And we want you to come out, you know? That just means we get to meet more people and have more fun. And have another person to interact with in the context of the game and perhaps beyond. I will say, don't be afraid. Everyone in the community is very, very nice. And if anyone isn't nice, you tell me and I'll take care of it. But yeah, please come out, introduce yourself. I want to meet you. I want you to play. I want you to have a good time. Like, this is something that I not just want for the scene. I want that for you individually, whoever you are. Please come, please play, and meet some people. You might make a best friend like I did. Like, I could not imagine my life without Mason. So maybe there's a Mason in their life, just waiting in the Tekken scene.